revolutionary painter, Shepard Fairey.
Mm-hmm.
To me, when I see those murals that he did now, they become almost the mapping point of gentrification.
Yeah.
The political iconography is now usurped and is now part of the aesthetics of this hipster,
Mm-hmm.
who likes to be cool and political in a neoliberalist way.
Welcome to What's My Thesis? I'm your host, Javier Proenza. Every week, my guests and I share the answers we found to the questions we have. Join us as we explore and expand our worldview and ask what's my thesis. Today, my guest is Raul Baltazar. How you doing, Raul?
I'm doing well, Javier.
¿Hablas español?
Sí.
Sí. Okay,
Sí,
cool.
español.
You never know over here. It's an interesting thing because in Miami, like everybody's Cuban and it's a lot of first generation Cubans over there. So it's not, there's not a lot of people that don't speak Spanish that are Cuban in Miami, just because the parents moved it here, and then all of my generation, at least Gen X, going into like early millennials, all of those kids were like first generation. They all spoke Spanish at the house. So like when I came over here, it was really different. Like over there, it's part of being the club. You know, like if you don't speak Spanish, you're kind of an outsider.
Yeah.
Whereas over here, la gente hablan a lot of English.
Exactly. We speak a lot of English, but it just takes a while to get back into the flow of things, and it's so interesting, like also how many different types of Spanish there are.
Yeah.
Like today I was hanging out with this cat who's from Spain. This is completely different from someone who, like, let's say lives in Mexico City, and then or some other Chicano cat, right? Like, so yeah, it's very interesting.
Are you Chicano if you don't, if you speak Spanish? Is that still considered Chicano? Is that just because of the locality, or I don't know too much about that cultural identity, so that's why I ask.
Okay, I think being Chicano is more about your politics.
Okay,
it's a politics rooted in social justice struggles that were happening in the late 60s. I think that it's also part of connecting with indigenous. It's like mexicano, mexico, chicano, So, yeah, I think it's been in connection with your history, growing up here in what's now called the United States of America, and finding your identity and not just trying to fit into the dominant culture.
Yeah.
And forgetting your own, right? Your own culture. But it's a little left-leaning, politicized kind of a consciousness, I would say.
Well, I mean, if it's in response to the U.S., one of the most right-wing, like, if you look at who the U.S. tends to coup in favor of right-wing politics, like because it's easier to control a client state like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, there I go with my Cuban shit.
No, well, I mean, I think it's interesting, right? Like for myself, thinking about, I think I come from a culture that has dealt with three empires, the Aztec Empire, Spanish Empire, American Empire, and how in the midst of all of that, you have to use cunning and guile to survive, as a people.
Yeah.
And especially not only to simply survive, but to flourish and to still celebrate life and to live with peace and dignity, right? Within this context of violent empires that are going to discipline you if you're falling out of line in various forms. And then on top of that, you end up getting caught up and dealing with sanctioned and unsanctioned forms of violence that you have to...
Oh, you're not even talking economic sanctions. That's what I thought you meant, but now I hear what you mean.
Yeah, because you have, let's say, like we're caught in between the police, the FBI, the sheriffs, and the narco cartels, you know, and the gang violence and the violence just of your own, just trying to like punk you in whatever form they can sometimes, you know, like for a dollar or just for whatever, place in line. So I always think about strategies of survival, you know, especially and surviving with peace and dignity, like that in itself is an art form, right? Or something that I think a lot. Also, how do you survive? Like what Charles Bukowski would talk about is like, you know, with style, you know, like how rare that is, right? To find people with style, you know, and grace and just how to live life on your own terms. I mean, life is so short, you know, it's sad to see people get caught up where they're already dead. They just haven't fallen over yet, you know?
No, definitely. Especially right now.
And I think that's why this country loves zombies so much, you know?
Yeah? You think that zombies are still in the zeitgeist?
Well, I think zombies are a mirror to what most of us are, you know?
Yeah.
The Walking Dead. Spiritually, just spiritually gone. Like, you know, like you've had your spirit taken from you and you don't even know it. Like, it's so incredible.
Yeah.
You know, how precious that is and how easily you could give it little by little. So anyhow, I think a lot about these things in my art form. You know, as an artist, I always have all these ideas of films and stories I want to tell. Mostly stories in whatever form come about. But I always think about some artist who wants to make a deal with the devil and he kind of laughs and says like,
oh shit, dude, you're hitting close to home, bro.
Right?
I'm trying to monetize this thing. I'm like thinking about that a lot.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you already sold your soul a long time ago.
You know,
it's just like, oh, dun, dun, dun.
It's funny how as Americans, we all flirted with like socialism for a little while. And then like after Bernie's campaign, like after that it was a wash. The whole like socialist movement in the US is gone and everybody's just becoming a pragmatist because they've seen like people with businesses just lose them over the pandemic shutdowns and stuff like that. It's so crazy. You know, you can spend your whole lifetime building like a restaurant, you know, or like working in a noble industry like the service industry. And all of a sudden you're like fucked, you know, and there's no backup plan for you. It's pretty crazy. Like, I think that speaks to what you were saying about zombies.
It was a really hard thing with Bernie, you know, Sanders and all that. Like, after Barack Obama, I never in my life thought I would see a black president. I just really thought that, you know, it's just white people in control and people of color, like, going to be in the struggle and that it's going to be a long time from now.
Yeah.
You know, in my lifetime to see us actually figure out a way to creep into, you know, these positions of power. And by the way, I always catch myself that I think it's not truly power. It's the illusion of power. It's just more of a position of authority. You know, I think true power is free. It's health. It's culture. It's like, connecting to the sun. You know, it's all those true elements.
Subversive things.
It could be subversive, but it's also just what really like health, the sun, the earth, the land, you know, like the beauty of a kid's smile, like that access to appreciating that is power, you know, or this, we have these medicines in our culture, you know, this legacy in our culture that connects us to power. So it's very easy to think that these people have power when they have authority in a man-made system that's supposed to control us if we let ourselves to be controlled. And I think the trick to life is to try to be as free as possible and not be controlled all the time. even if as a performance artist, I often work as the trickster, and I have a character that I created, Totally 7, the Aztec bunny, and he tries to win and to be victorious in these little feats that he tries to accomplish. And even though it's a momentary victory, you figure that life is made out by a bunch of moments.
Yeah.
So it still has value in that regard, even if it's the smallest gesture, And so, yeah, anyhow, like I think a lot about things like that. And I've dedicated my life to being an artist, and I've made a living as an artist since I left the Navy when I joined the military at 18 years old,
What was that like?
Well, it was duplicitous. It was very interesting because I, as an artist, I wanted to live an interesting life with adventures. And I had a lot of critique towards the military industrial complex, towards the United States imperialism. And at the same time, I just thought like, I can't be taken seriously unless I've actually seen or been a part of it somehow, like to really critique something. So I figured, I'm going to join the Navy. I'm going to get out of here. Plus, I had people wanting to literally shooting at my house. And, I was getting caught up in a lot of trouble here in LA.
Where did you grow up?
Here in LA.
But like what part? Any particular area?
El Sereno.
El Sereno.
Yeah. There was a big house party scene at that time. But the promoter groups of all these mostly young men, young women, but mostly a lot of the men would get all fucking drunk and violent. And there was always a fight. And if you went to the party or were part of that scene, you would carry a knife or a bat in the car or guns even. And before you knew it, there was a fight. You had to back up your friends, and then certain crews backed up other crews. And so it just became this big old mess of violence all the time when we were out partying. And I was part of that, for a good while until I was just like, this is done, dude. Like, I can't keep up with this. I need to get out because, I was just getting deeper and deeper into trouble. And people are literally dying or being incarcerated, for all the mess we were getting in. And so, yeah, I joined the Navy. It was only a 2-year program, which I thought was cool. And I barely made those 2 years because I didn't like people telling me what to do all the time. And then I also realized that I was part of the world police, of the enforcer. And I was like, wow, I'm kind of a very duplicitous character. Like, look at how I could fit into both. Yeah. And I was very subversive too, in a way, where I actually painted a mural inside of a naval ship, with Chicano iconography inside. Like the UFW eagle and fists, brown fists and, luchadores and stuff. So I thought that was kind of funny. And I traveled. I did a West Pack. We traveled through the Western Pacific Ocean. But I just also saw like Sin City, man. Just the craziest, darkest things that...
In the Navy?
Yeah, that military do in these ports.
Oh, so like when you say Sin City, I was thinking more of like debauchery.
Debauchery.
You're talking debauchery? Okay.
Yeah. So I started drawing a lot of this debaucherous like acts and things.
So you were already an artist before. Did you already identify as an artist before you joined the Navy?
Yeah, I identified as an artist since I was a little boy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I always knew that was my calling. And I always drew, even though my drawings weren't that great, I was still very like social political, very like, kind of hardcore about my politics. Loved history classes and, and also just drawing a lot, and hearing or learning about other artists. But I always realized that there wasn't ever an artist that was like me, as a Chicano.
Really? Growing up, I guess not.
Growing up, no.
I mean, there were movements, but I guess it makes sense to not be aware of them also, right? Because there was I forget what it was called. There was a thing the only reason I know is because of LACMA, but there was like I forget what they were called, but I think that was like in the 70s. But actually, I don't even know how old you are, so maybe I'm talking out of my ass. So maybe there wasn't. Maybe that was around the time.
Are you talking about like ASCO, or are you talking...
Yeah, ASCO.
Okay, yeah.
What
there were
was that?
groups. That was the 70s. So there's groups like Los Four, ASCO, the Goes, and a lot of artists that were producing work, like you're saying, in the 60s and 70s and the 50s. But I didn't know about them. But although I did grow up to seeing a lot of these murals, on the street. Yeah. And so to me, that was very interesting. And I was like, whoa. But it was weird growing up because we're taught to kind of be a little ashamed or embarrassed of the naivety of that work, because it's not like the types of murals you would see like in Italy or like in a church or what have you. So there was always this weird tension with that. Or your parents were like, oh, we don't want you to be a cholo, or we don't want you to be, and they would equivocate that with like, a cholo aesthetic, or like this kind of like lowbrow aesthetic, right? So
not assimilating
exactly. And not following rules.
Calling attention to your differentness in a way that makes your immigrant parents uncomfortable, maybe.
Yeah, because my parents' generation got hit hard with being taught the what do you call it, the codial way of Mexicanismo, or to be what's the word?
Codio.
Es como cotizano,
quotidian.
Yeah. So they were very, no elbows on the table, put your, like up, like, así se comen la gente decente, like all these rules. No hables con la
boca llena,
abierta, like, so that went along with the aesthetics, of how you dressed, how you did your hair, how you...
Do you think that is an Anglo thing, or do you think that comes from more like the Spanish influence of like, because that sounds like very much more to me as a Catholic, or as a lapsed Catholic, which I think is one of the things. When you were mentioning that Spanish guy, I was like, oh, I know what we all have in common.
Yeah.
And that's one of the fucking things that's crazy about Latinidad in general, is that it is like, it's either in relation to Catholicism, where people are actually actively devout, which, is interesting. And then you also have like people that are coming out of that and are reacting the same way, or at the same way that, like, in rejecting it, right? Like, so I don't know. I think that, like, when you think of, how many countries, is that the same with Protestantism? Like, are all white people in white countries Protestant? Is that how it works? No, I don't think so, right?
Well, I guess, like I said, it was a very Spanish thing, right?
Yeah.
And to break you away from indigenous kind of aesthetics or ways of being, right? So if you knew those rules of civility,
of civilizing people,
then you were a part of Mexican society, right?
Yeah,
and it was interesting how even the poorest, which was what my family came from, because there was like 8, family of 8 kids living in a one room, little,
which is pretty
apartment.
Catholic in itself too. Yeah. 8 kids, for my generation, my parents had 4. My grandfather was 13, one of 13.
Wow. Yeah. See?
Yeah.
Wow.
But then I also think that had to do with socioeconomic status too. Like, cause my dad's, I don't know what I'm talking. No. Yeah. On my mom's side, they're not as, I think I don't know how many siblings. My mom had a lot of siblings, or my grandmother had a lot of siblings, but nowhere near like 13. Anyway, but I do think that maybe also has to do with modernity catching up, you know, like in terms of like, I'm sure in Cuba having 13 kids was probably, because not all of them made it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, just bringing it back to the art and everything, my upbringing, like that to me was interesting. You know, like seeing the art in my community and always feeling a bit insecure of it.
Mm-hmm. In comparison to like
it
what?
was like you would see and the irony is today Fed, this amazing curator from Spain, went through my paintings looking for some work in an exhibition, and he's like, I like, you know, the first one I showed him was a painting of Tweety Bird as a Mexican revolutionary,
Mm-hmm.
and I named the painting the first mural I ever remember seeing as I would walk up to school every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like confronting this Tweety Bird that's my size, that's a little Mexican revolutionary with his guns. And this curator from Spain is like, I want this for the show, you know.
Yeah.
Like, he got it.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, like this is supposed to be the empire, you know, like coming down and but it's so ironic because it's like now you're kind of taking it back to Spain, you know, and it's this cyclical, this colonial kind of returning the gaze, you know, and it's beautiful that way, you know. It's so interesting.
It is. It definitely is. How how do you feel that you see art now from Mexican culture? Because it's interesting what you're saying, because I've definitely heard. I mean, you know, I always bring up the futurists, but they're a really interesting case study, right? And they were frustrated with old Italian art, right? Like all this like Western thing, all these things that maybe, you know, like to me, they're basically comic books, right? Like they're the old fashioned comic book, like, you know, Christian paintings in like Renaissance period, right? Like that harkens back to like classical style of painting, right? I don't know if that's what you mean by murals, but that's what I think of like what I would consider fancy wall paintings. But they felt like ashamed of those too, right? Like it's funny, the idea of like feeling like your artwork is inadequate. And I think that might also have to do with like modernity. How do you feel like you relate to Mexican, like the same kind of Mexican mural art now as opposed to then? Like has your perspective, because it doesn't sound like you're ashamed. You're talking about it like you felt it was weird.
Okay, well, let me regress a little bit. So, okay, like you're saying, you have your street art, your Chicano murals, right? That are politicized, that are reclaiming, right? Their selves, their aesthetic, saying this is us. And then you have the gang graffiti also out on the street. And then you have the Catholic art, because I went to a Catholic grammar school.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that type of work. And then, of course, you see Picasso and Dali and some kind of like art books here and there. And then maybe like some references in your history book of art or a Life magazine here and there, right? And you start seeing a little bit of modernity and that type of art. So you're often taught the difference between lowbrow and highbrow is what is permitted, what is not permitted. Mm-hmm. So the lowbrow stuff that was kind of like the graffiti or the Chicano murals was looked at as lowbrow, right? But at that time, as a little kid trying to fit in, and us as little Chicano kids were even more disciplinary towards each other to try to fit in, where we would be the first ones to go, you little wetback. Like, those aren't real Vans. Those are wannabes. Like, oh, like, where'd you get those?
I get you.
Good, Tia Lichi's take it or leave it in Tijuana, or like, we're like mean little kids like that. We're just like, put you down, and, like,
a lot of Cubans are going to know the slang term ref, which is refugiado, which is what we used to call each other. You're such a ref, bro. So I relate to what you're saying.
Right? So bad. And you're like, oh, no, they're not. They're real. I didn't know any better. My mom bought me some Hush Puppy fucking wannabe Vans, and I was so embarrassed. I was like, I thought they were real.
Qué pena.
And, but, then you turn on TV and you see Ricky Schroeder,
Who's Ricky Schroeder?
Ricky Schroeder was in his TV show Silver Spoons.
Okay, I think I remember.
Rich white boy, little white kid. And all the surfers are wearing their OP. And then you're just like this little chubby brown kid. You're just like, it was a little different if they wore like sandals and their OP shorts or their like poncho.
No, yeah.
And then if I put on a poncho, I just look like some little wetback kid,
Yeah. Like, it's not like it's not hip. No, and it's fair too, because it's like, I mean, we're talking about LA in like at the time where like LA was the fucking coolest too. So it's not like you're not just dealing with the coolest people in LA, you're dealing like kind of with the coolest people in the world, right? Like the OP surfer kind of like that aesthetic of like, I mean, you get what I'm saying?
But it was the coolest kids and the coolest thing, but you were an invisible people, which is interesting. Even though you did have kids of color that were coming up in that, like Steve Caballero and, these skater kids that were, a little bit later, but as a little kid, only having access to television at that time and what's around you and what's cool and the billboards, like El Sereno was like growing up in a little Mexican town.
Yeah.
Most white people or Italian people and Jewish people had moved out, and it was mostly just like first generation Mexican kids, and some second generation, but they were kind of weird too. Like this one Latino man I would never forget would always like, get your wetback kids off of my lawn,
Wow.
and it's like, dude, you're Mexican, like, your parents are Mexican, like, nah, I don't care. They're like, he really wanted to fit into this like Archie Bunker kind of like American, and so I think later on, as I grew a little older, I came across Jean-Michel Basquiat, and I was just like, wow, okay.
You started to appreciate street art, you're saying?
The fusion of it and it being and hip hop culture blossoming. I mean, I saw hip hop culture as a little kid in its inception, right? I was breakdancing and pop locking cardboards. Cool. Yeah, but not really too long. But same, like I tried to skate for a week and I fell on my knee and I was like, oh, fuck, I'm not skating.
Windmills are hard.
Yeah. BMX. Like all that stuff.
Man, you're making your childhood sound idyllic. In the sense that, like, I don't know. When I moved to Miami at around 12 years old, like all the cool community stuff that was like in my childhood, because I grew up in Italy and we grew up in the suburbs, and they had stuff like skate parks and stuff like that. When I got to Miami, their attitude is like the beaches are our parks. They barely, like, they have parks, but it's just not the same. So like when I got out here and I saw all the skate parks, I'm like, that's it, I'm skating again. I couldn't miss the opportunity to have access to that. So I get all padded up.
Wow.
Yeah, I suck, but
Yeah, but you like the feeling, huh?
Yeah, and it's just nice to have like a spot no one kicks you out of, like a spot where you are allowed to do it. I mean, I'm sure it's died down, but there's still liability issues. Security guards are probably just not as rude anymore. Mm-hmm. They're probably apologetic, but I'm sure they kick people out.
See, we as kids right here in El Sereno, like they built their own BMX track. I remember, like where the freeway stopped, where the freeway ended off, where the 710 ends. It's called Sawyer's, and then we were just kids that played in the hills. Mm-hmm. and that was our playground.
Yeah.
And we had trails that when walking to school and shortcuts, and so we still got that taste of like the Little Rascals.
Yeah,
kind
same.
of like in LA, like in LA, like as
leave the house for hours.
Yeah, until you hear your parents yelling for you to come home. Raul, all right, I gotta go.
No.
And like friends of mine who have kids, like they won't even let them like go to the corner by themselves. They're so afraid.
I don't know.
It's a trip.
It is a trip, but I don't know. Like,
I used to take the bus at 12 years old to Melrose or ride my bike literally to the beach.
But I don't know that I would be any different. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have kids, but, but I mean, like, the world does feel really dangerous compared to when I was a kid, you know? But I don't know. It's probably also just like the fact that I have something that can scare me at all times in my pocket, you know?
Right.
It's like, oh my God,
what exactly are you talking about?
My fucking phone, my phone from hell, you know, like I think they call it a doom scroll for a reason, but like, yeah, like if you're just completely isolated from like all of that knowledge, you know, just, I mean, also just the amount, there's always been true crime. True crime is not a new thing, but the accessibility of it is so crazy and the amount of it is so like, because of the accessibility, I don't know, there's like it's one of those calculus things that I sucked at where you like figure out what the perfect amount to make to keep the price low. Like that's what we've hit peak efficiency on true crime accessibility. Like there's just so much content. So if you're a mom that's into that shit, I'm sure you're freaked out, you know? Or a dad. I mean, I'm into it. So like, you know, like that's where most of my fear comes from.
I mean, I saw a lot of violence growing up, man. I grew up in a very violent time in the 90s, you know, with crack cocaine, gang violence. You know, as a little kid, the Bautistas lived right on the back of our alley. They burned our garage down. You know, you had like what we call the original sagger, like the first guy. We always think the mythos is that it was the first cholo to ever sag his pants that we witnessed. Just crazy, but it makes for good artwork, you know. Yeah. Like I mean, I saw some shit like, yeah. I mean, maybe that's just like a past generation, like you say, you know.
No, maybe it's just as dangerous as it was now that you say that, you know. And then, but I think it also has to do with neighborhoods. I think it's
not as dangerous as it was.
No, you don't think so?
Hell no.
Anywhere in the US, you think? There's probably.
I'm not going to talk. I'm just talking about LA.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
No.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk for other.
No. With that, I'm definitely in 100% agreement. There's no place that I've been to in LA where I felt unsafe, including South Central.
See, what's interesting now is that we've had such an arc where like kids dress like cholos for fashion.
Uh-huh.
Where before, like you threw on some Cortez or some Dickies or a bandana.
You were going to fight?
And you're waiting for someone to call you out. So it was like...
What did Dickies represent? They just mean that you're about the life or what?
Well,
it's not like the hats out here where it's like if you wear a baseball hat that's like an A's, you're repping one neighborhood.
Well, I mean, yeah, you need to know the codes of the neighborhood you're in, right? And what the disses are and all that. But I'm just saying, like, if you have that look and you're walking around, like, get ready for it. You're probably gonna find it.
So you're saying it's not like a fashion choice. You can just, it's not cosplay. Or if you wear it as cosplay, you will find out that you are very much dressed like a police officer in a crisis.
Right. No, and yeah, so, you know, I mean, that also really made me think a lot about, like you say, the streets when they talk, when you see them on the walls. Oh, so you made me also think about, so for example, if you look at murals that are out today and the graffiti on top of them, especially the ones on the freeway, right? On the 110, they literally covered the entire Frank Romero mural and just left the little 2x2 foot rectangle.
Who's Frank Romero? I don't know who
Frank
that is.
Romero was one of the original Los Four, like Chicano muralist.
Okay.
He's like in his late 70s, probably one of the most well-known Chicano, artists. First Chicanos to ever show at LACMA, And at first it was like, wow, they haven't tagged on this mural. But then it was like ants to a snail. And they just one, and then boom, and they just devoured this mural. And it's quite beautiful in a very dystopic way. You're just like, wow, this is like, we are in something worse than A Clockwork Orange,
Or it's also kind of kill your masters a little bit. It sounds like, kill your idols, like reacting to like, isn't that what the younger generation is supposed to do?
If they were, but I don't even think they were ever their idols. It was more just like,
well, no, or maybe, I just meant it in the elegant sense. I just mean like the younger generation hates the older generation, right?
I guess, or they're just like, why is this high art? Why is this given a budget? Why is this allowed and not our shit? And so they're just like that much more violent in their attack towards that work, and irreverent to say like, we're just as valid, and even more so because we're going to do it without a budget, without permission. It's illegal. And we're going to figure out how to get up on that wall and do this impossible performative feat. And you're going to deal with it. And you just have to sit back as a muralist, was one of the things I do is murals, to just go like, whoa, like, all right, like, you got me, like, this is the culture we live in.
Who would you say is I'm interested that in your focus on murals. Obviously you are a muralist, so that's probably why it comes up and why you think of it in those terms. But like, so like, you're speaking murals, specifically street art murals that like, because one of the most famous Mexican artist I know is a muralist, right? It's Diego Rivera, right? Mm-hmm. Is there something to like, maybe because of its street art, or I don't know, I don't understand why I associate murals with Mexican art, and now you're bringing it up. Is that a thing, or is it just an absolute coincidence that you're talking about it, and the main Mexican artist that I know is Diego? Do you think there's a cultural thing there?
Because murals are fascinating in that way.
I was associating it with frescoes when you were saying murals, and you were saying that our murals aren't as good. So who would you be comparing your murals? You were saying Picasso, right? Like Guernica and things like that. The high art versus the lowbrow. But there's been like highbrow. I would say Diego Rivera is considered a highbrow muralist. Do you fuck with any of that at all, or like any?
Oh yeah, that was definitely my early education. But let's say take for example Siqueiros. Mm-hmm. So when Siqueiros did Tropico America in what was at that time like a little Mexico that they created in Olvera Street, right, for like tourists and stuff. The night before the opening, he comes in and he paints the crucified Indio, and it became a scandal, right? But he made sure to have it photographed, and then it became world renowned as a myth until even later on it being uncovered, by the Getty and making it a mural site, right? But that's where he used the mural as a subversive act as well. And of course, so did Diego Rivera when he painted in Karl Marx, right? Or was it Marx, right?
Isn't it which airport is it?
At the Rockefeller building in New York. And
really? But there's also an airport that I've been to that has one of his pieces. I think maybe DC.
Well, yeah, there's all kinds of Diego Rivera murals, but I'm saying for him to paint in Karl Marx in Rockefeller Plaza was huge, and of course socialists. And stuff.
Yeah.
But Siqueiros actually showed and taught like artists like Jackson Pollock, who later on became the most renowned modernist painter that the U.S. used and the CIA backed for individualism and the branding of this modern democracy, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Susan
right?
Sontag, to all my fans out there, or to all the listeners, to all my Susan Sontag fans out there, not to my fans, is also part of that CIA thing. There's a book called Flinch or something about it. I haven't read it, but it's pretty interesting. That is interesting that's like become a. It's funny how like the CIA does things and then they slowly reveal it later, or it becomes known and accepted fact years later. And, you know, like basically they put like, what they do, I think, is that they release information in such a way that it's like 75 years after the fact.
Everyone died.
So anybody that was old enough to be upset about it is dead, and everybody that was young enough to still be alive doesn't remember that shit at all. It's crazy. But yeah, like it is such a thing. It's just such a wild thing because Sontag is like taught so much in academia and no one ever fucking talks about that.
Wow.
You know, and I think it's relevant. I mean, at least in the, like, it doesn't necessarily invalidate her work, and I'm actually still not even clear if she was used as a puppet or at like if she was aware that she was working with it, you know, because they do fucking shady shit. But anyway,
well, and the mural is doing the same thing it did in the church, right? To indoctrinate people into that way of thinking, right? So, for example, to me, what's always interesting is our revolutionary painter Shepard Fairey and white graph artist, right? And, you know,
Obey was kind of
make advertisings for Obey.
Yeah, no, that's when
Obey your thirst.
Yeah.
For, you know, soda or what have you, selling soda. So Mountain Dew.
I think it was Sprite.
Was it Sprite?
Yeah.
Okay.
Obey your thirst, bro.
Yeah. Obey your thirst.
Do you remember the commercial with the guy that says Buffy?
Not really. I don't.
Okay, never mind.
But to me, when I see those murals that he did now, they become almost the mapping point of gentrification.
Yeah.
And the marking and neoliberalist art.
No.
That takes away all of what the political iconography is now usurped and is now part of like that movie They Live, you know, where you put on the glasses and you could read the subtext of the imagery, and which was actually Obey, and that's where he got the font from, right? Yeah. And then now the subtext to Obey is actually like.
Well, now that once he did the thing for Obama, he's like part of the system now. So he literally he subverted his own original message, right? Because like I remember before like people were like when people, I remember going through the period where people were like, "Yo, did you see that? Andre, who's this guy that's doing the Andre the Giant shit?" Right? Like, or maybe that was known and I just became aware of it like years later because I don't actually know when he was making this stuff. But
probably 90s, right? 94,
so then,
92. 90.
Yeah. So then around that time, that's when I heard about it. And I thought that it, at the time, I was like, oh, it's interesting. It is sort of subversive. You've got this dead icon who's a wrestler who's like known for being too big, for like, you know, consumes insane amounts of wine. and like
we loved him.
Yeah, we loved him. And he's, and having him just say like on these things, like it was a little punk, it was a little bit thing, it was a little tongue in cheek. Once you start making it a brand, he changes the context of it. It's almost like he should have just done something else. You know, like his brand should not have been Obey, and then it would have still had its context. Even though, I mean, I get what you're saying. It was always about gentrification and about pushing people out, right? Like,
no. I didn't say it in a way that it was always about gentrification. I was saying that where the mural is located becomes a mapping point of gentrification. So in the fact that because it's like this, the aesthetics of this hipster, you know, who likes to be cool and political, you know, in a neoliberalist way.
But was he in the 90s? Are you saying that the 90s was that, or do you think it was just a kid that didn't really necessarily? Now I think he's definitely aware, and I think he's playing the game for sure. I agree with you on that. But do you think in the context of the 90s, he felt that, did we even have the term hipsters?
We've had hipsters since the 30s.
Hipsters I didn't really.
Yeah, like jazz hipsters and all that. You know, it's like we love our hipsters as much as we hate them, right? Hipsters are the cool kids who are now like.
But were the hipsters
hanging out in leisure?
Were the hipsters the white guys that hung out at the jazz?
No, a lot of them were black. Jazz.
Okay.
Yeah, the early black jazz hipsters, right?
Yeah. So it's a word that's kind of changed because I just think of white people.
Yeah, right.
You know,
but it could be like black kids or brown kids that have the money, that have their education or the trust fund and get to hang out all day at the cafe or like at the restaurant or. You know, I don't know. Like,
I get what you're saying.
Funny how we create this.
I 100% get what you're saying. No, I get what you're saying, but I also think that there is. I get it. The hipster's not exclusive to white people, but I do tend to think about, and I think most people when they imagine a hipster, they're not thinking of a black guy for whatever racist reasons that we have that programming, right? Like, you know, like I'm not saying that that's right, but.
It's like some little cute white sloppy girl.
But it's interesting. But so many artists are hipsters. So and you kind of hit on something that I think about a lot, which is like, okay, granted, you probably didn't come from, and not every artist comes from wealth, right? Yeah. Like, but a lot of them do. And there is some level of leisure activity. And I think that, like, you know, okay, because in school, I talk about this all the time. They don't necessarily teach you the business of being an artist. And I think that has a little bit to do with tenure, where it's like these people that are teaching you don't necessarily live in the real world. They're part of academia, this sort of like ivory tower, right? Even as much effort as they're trying to de-ivoryfy it. Mm-hmm. But it is really interesting because I interview people and I interview artists, and like a lot of them are poor, but like, or a lot of them come from poverty and are, you know, and I do not. So it's a different perspective, but a lot of them do. And it is a little bit of a privileged position. So it is funny that like you described hipsters in sort of the way that in my head, I think about artists, which is like, they got a little bit of money, you know, but then that also points to the fact that you mentioned that you're making a living off of it. So I think that mentality, you know, like, can you maybe talk about your capitalist inclinations or like survival inclinations within the capitalist system of being an artist?
Sure,
Because I mean, I do feel like you do have some, I mean, I almost assume that Latinos are a little bit more left-leaning unless they're like, you know, super Catholic. Mm-hmm. They tend to be left-leaning. Is that a fair assessment? I mean, don't comment and be like, this is not scientifically.
Yeah.
But I think typically, like, most people are either reacting to Catholicism that are Latino or embracing it. You know, like reacting it in the same way that Satanists wouldn't exist if there was no Catholicism.
Okay, well, I would say this. Left or right, you know, and that binary is interesting, but I'm more interested in those nuances where you're like, you know, like I said, in, let's say, Shepard Fairey, for example, thinking he's the most left artist there is.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But in reality, it's the aesthetics of the left. Mm-hmm. But it's not acting as its politics. It's not acting out the politics.
It's neoliberal, which is what I think you nailed it. I think I definitely understood that.
So that art form of neoliberalism, which came about in the early 90s, right? That I'm aware of, like with...
the Beautiful Losers kind of group?
Well, yeah, or like with advertising, you had Benetton, right? All of a sudden, it's all these people of color that are models too. And it wasn't only the white kids anymore. It was like black kids too.
Do you remember the one with the black kid?
Latinos.
Did you see the one with the black kid that had the devil horns? That was a scandal back in the 80s because I was still living abroad. But yeah,
wow.
They also played with that shit, and it was kind of it was racy.
Yeah, right. So I think to me that was interesting in the fact that living in the United States, we were still not included necessarily as Latinos in it. It was still very like black and white.
Yeah, Paul Francisco era of comedy.
Well, that went right over.
Pablo Francisco. And there's just a bunch of really great comedians that would talk about their auditions and how every time they auditioned, they had to play like they were like had to button up the top shirt and leave the shirt, which was the way was the cholo look at the time. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, that's a whole other conversation. It's so interesting, right? Because they also provided the aesthetics for like the suicidals, which was a punk cholo fusion, in that style, and so anyhow, like I think also, you have to think about postmodernity and the access to so much information, and for us to be able to recontextualize and cannibalize tropes and aesthetics and histories of art and
oh my God,
reformat them, like using the example of Shepard Fairey, and then using stuff from They Live, Andre the Giant, or the Misfits, all things that we know and we're comfortable, and they're supposed to be subcultures, and now they're contextualized, relayered, re-aestheticized, and then now it's supposed to be like a lefty cheeseburger, chili burger, thing.
No, I get what you're saying.
But at the same time, it's just.
But then it's
just bad. It's because it's pop, and it's now being co-opted in so many ways by so many people that it's like.
Is there a way of doing that without getting co-opted? Like if you let's say you become a famous, popular. Let's say you reach his same scale. Is there a way to do that without becoming part of that neoliberal system? And that's an interesting question in terms of like I think it's a class. It's a class question, right? Like once you reach a certain level of class.
No, I don't. Well, okay. Let's look at.
You can get your bag.
Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
He has mythical status. Look at Mike Tyson. Like,
do you have examples of artists that have that kind of status that you feel hold up? I might not know them. I'm just curious, and I'm not pushing back aggressively.
Okay,
I just want to flesh it out.
Okay, I would say like Jean-Michel Basquiat, the way he lived his life, but what they ended up selling his work to now be like fashion and all this stuff, right? But he knew he had to sacrifice his life in order for his work to be mythic. Once the work got mythic,
how did he die?
Heroin overdose.
Okay.
But I think there was something inside of him that knew that he had to like go out in that way.
Who are these fucking people that produce so much work in their youth that they can just die? God damn, that's prolific. That you gotta give that up.
Yeah, I mean that's how he was just a shooting star, man.
If I died right now, my retrospective would be so small.
Wow. I mean, mine would be big, but no one would give a fuck compared to his. Like, I mean, the audience would be no. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like,
no, I get what you're saying, but it's because it is. All right. To me, this is interesting, and the reason I ask the questions is in my perception of the world as it is today. My understanding is that once you reach a certain level, a certain class, it's almost impossible to not be neoliberal in your politics, in the sense that I feel like neoliberalism is less about left or right because it's actually right-wing ideology, and we just treat it like it's left-wing. Like that's why every Latin American country is to the left of us. It's Margaret Thatcherism, right? Like it's not left-wing. It is a rebranding of some very neoconservative ideas with, and it is a real fucking problem that feeds into imperialism in this way. And I think that once you hit a certain level of success, like let's say, I don't want to call out any artist but of the status of, say someone that shows at a Hauser & Wirth, right? Like once you reach that place, how can you make that kind of money and still be a full-on leftist? It's sort of like those guys that become huge socialist YouTubers and buy $3 million homes, and then they get called out on it. And I'm not like I don't have a problem with it. I'm not trying to call out anyone's bag because I'm dealing with these questions now because I'm trying to hustle this show because I know that like, honestly, it's not that hard to just make a lot of content from long form content. And
wait. Hold on. Pause. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, let me get back.
Okay. Go finish it. Sorry. Okay.
I'm tying it back. So what I'm saying is that as you're trying to hustle and make it up to the next level, like let's say I want to be an artist that makes $100,000, and I'm not even trying to do that off of my art, but let's just say that that's an end goal, right? How do you do that without sort of having to reassess the way that you value money and value people, and you're separating yourself by making more money in a sense, right? Because now you have power. Like it's almost like you can't give every homeless person you see on the street money. You can't feed your entire family, not in this economy, unless you become like Jeff Bezos, right? Like you can't feed your parents and then your little sister and then like all of the people. So what I'm asking is like, because you are someone that actually makes a living, with your artwork. How do you navigate that? And I think survival plays into it, right? But how do you navigate without like playing within a game that is counter to your ethics, like capitalism, right?
Okay, wait. Okay, you said a lot. Let me try to. First of all, I never said I was against capitalism.
No, I'm not saying that you are. I'm saying in terms of like having those values, we're talking about how do you not become a neoliberal? How do you not become Shepard Fairey? Because I would say Shepard Fairey is in that $100,000 camp.
Oh, he's a millionaire. I mean,
and up, right? Like,
yeah.
Like,
I mean, look. Let me. Shepard Fairey is an example because he's a popular figure that everyone could kind of connect with, right? Mm-hmm. And like you say, people are using similar tropes, whether it be Sam Durant, also making political work within, like let's say the context of Blum and Poe or these international art galleries and all that. I mean, I get it. I get these systems, mm-hmm. right? I get the contradiction once again, what we were talking about when I was in the Navy, right?
You seem to be an expert on these. That's why I'm asking you.
The thing,
and I'm not a saint. I'm trying to
none of us are saints
to heal to reconcile it for myself as I try to do it. As I try to at least make a living, off of the art scene.
The thing is that you cannot have a strong community without an economic base. We need an economic base. We need to flourish as a community, right? I would like to be able to sell these paintings that I make for what they're worth to me, because I put a lot of labor and time into them as, not only physically to create it, but my entire practice to get to the point to produce, this works. And I would love for there to be a market so that the works could even create more wealth for, future generations, So we are using these different systems, right? And trying to like get ours with them, And I say, use whatever you can, right, to survive and figure it out. Like, I'm not so interested in these binaries of good and bad or left and right and all that, because it's like you have to make a left and a right and go straight up and down and a curve, like to get anywhere. Like, that's life. Like, so I'm not going to be this staunch, like, the dogma, right?
I'm not saying you are. I'm saying like, how do you, because it is.
No, but that's what I'm not trying to like judge people in that way. Like you have to be this way or you have to do this or do that one. But at the same time, it's important for us to be critically minded, right? But more importantly, we have to figure out our value systems in order to get where we want. Okay, and then we need to figure out our value systems, because then you're going to create a community. Because people like to hang out with people that share the same values. And then when you share the same values, you need to figure out where you want to get to. What is that strategy to get there? And that, I think, is going to help to build stronger communities. It's okay to make, I have made over $100,000 a year sometimes, and other times I haven't, you know. And when you think about it today, that's not that much money.
No, it's shit.
Right? You're still struggling with it if you make $100,000 a year.
Yeah, it's fucking nothing.
What's that like? It's less than what? 10,000. I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
Believe me, dude. I've como dicen que a veces que el pato nada y a veces que ni agua bebe.
Yeah, no.
You know,
yeah.
Peaks and valleys, and like, I live that life, and sometimes I'm you know, dropping coin and buying the drinks, and sometimes I'm counting quarters, you know, literally, and like, you know.
Well, I think you answered the question well, because I think that from everything I know, there's really not a community associated with someone like Shepard Fairey, right? Like, I don't know who his crew was. I saw his work at the Geffen thing, the street art show that they did, which was pretty interesting. I enjoyed the show, but I just kind of felt like his stuff was just by itself. And my sister was there with me. I don't know what Shepard Fairey looks like, but she was like, "Who is this annoying ass asshole explaining all this work?" And she turns around and it was him. So I guess he had some friends there, and he was explaining the scene to them. But my sister was just like, "Oh,
I know."
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I've never even heard the dude talk, so I don't want to cast aspersions. But I thought that's definitely a funny story to share.
Yeah. I mean, to me, what's interesting is just like I'm saying, the layers of like of subtext.
Yeah.
And then how the cultural industries will co-opt and cannibalize your work, you know, eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, and how we participate in, I mean, I've gotten dirty myself, you know, like I've done stuff that I don't really remember right now.
That's okay. Because we're not.
My mind will just like eject it and throw it into the trash can bin in my brain so that I could survive. But I'm sure people that are watching this are going to remember like the dirty shit that I've done that I'm not the proudest of. But at the same time, like, you know, we're all trying to make a living, and sometimes people dangle the carrot and you just jump.
No, yeah. And sometimes
it's
you need
nice
to eat.
to have the cachet to say no.
Yeah.
Or the education to say no, or the support to be able to say no, you know, the clarity to say no, right? But when you're in a desperate situation, it's very easy to say yes to something.
Yeah.
Because you're desperate. You're not thinking straight, and it's hard. And when you're living life as an artist, not producing capital the way you should, a capitalist system is going to discipline you.
Yeah.
And those bills are going to come with a fine. And your lights might get turned off, and you're going to be tripping and figuring out, you know, it's so, you know, I have more empathy now. The more I study history, I'm more interested in, wow, that's why they did that, rather than, oh, they were the evil ones for doing that. It's more like, no, you know.
What's funny, you talked about freedom earlier, and that is such a nebulous word too. You know, it can mean so many different things, right? Like, to so many different people, even depending on where you are in this country, freedom means different things, right? And some people will be like, you can't say that, and some people will be like, no, censorship is bad, and that can even flip from being a left to a right thing, right? Like when we were growing up, the left was anti-censorship.
Well, you make me think right away of John Trudell, who would say, everybody wants freedom, nobody wants responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, okay. I get it. You know, like, yeah, you know, it's like Kanye West now, right?
Ye.
Like everyone,
Excuse me, his name is Ye.
Oh, Ye. Sorry. You look at Ye and you just think, wow, this is a train wreck happening in front of my eyes. Like, and I can't turn away.
Because to me, that guy is so lonely. That guy,
it's, you know,
he's got nobody. He just has nobody, and then people just come in, and then like they act like they're cool with him, and then they're the new people that he's like, you know, because they're co-signing him. It's crazy. I've never seen someone that I felt is so lonely.
And you could be a billionaire, but you can't buy the love of your wife or your kids.
You can be super fucking talented, and you can't you can't. It won't.
You're still alone.
Yeah.
You can't like walk out and just like kick it, be chill. Like, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to.
It's so sad.
It's so tragic, right?
It's so sad.
What you think you want?
It's so sad for that guy because nobody is going to take him seriously anymore. And it's almost like people won't even let him. Like he did an interview with whatchamacallit, with the guy that got fired from CNN, Chris Cuomo, and I'm like, God damn, yeah, you've fallen. You have fallen, bro.
And why do you think he fell? He fell because we all put him up on a pedestal to fall.
Yeah. And he got away with this so many times, man. He fucked with so much shit. Like he said, and I think that he also just never learned, you know?
So real quick, before we go off into this horrible the right turn,
well, he's an artist that's just fucking, it's a little relevant, but go ahead.
What's interesting is like, now I just turned 50, you know, so thinking on my life, like, damn, like, this is how I've made my living. It's been very slow and steady, but it's still coming at a rise, right? So in that way, I just thought like, wow, it's really happened at a pace that I can endure and I can enjoy. Still very hungry, you know, but it's pushed me to where I still have that eye of the tiger, you know, and willing to work hard to get it. Because I still don't feel like I've arrived and could just be like dealing with what Ye deals with, you know. But so many younger artists like are now dealing with a market that's there for them and waiting, you know, for the young, fresh, like new, you know, Latinx art, you know, to come out. And now that's the whole like thing, you know. So that's what's interesting. Like what's the culture?
How do you feel about neoliberal push to address diversity at all at the expense of class? In the sense that like we're seeing more brown people on television, like you were saying that you didn't used to see. I forgot what we were referencing. What was it?
Silver Spoons.
Silver Spoons, yeah. Like, and I can relate to that a little bit.
Or if there were people of color, they played these fucked up roles, like different strokes, you know, like rich white millionaire rescues two black orphans, you know, and
now we
saves them from living in the ghetto, right?
Well, but I mean, do you find media any less condescending now to marginalized groups?
Let's see. I'm sure we can find some good stuff.
No, we don't have to find it good, but I mean, it doesn't seem like the correction is any less neoliberal. You know, to keep that theme going in terms of like, we're still going to rape and pillage countries outside, but we want people to feel included in being citizens, right? Of this like sort of you know, like, I don't want to say crypto fascist, but like we do have like a pretty intense partnership between corporations and our government that is like very intense and pretty unconstitutional. And it's crazy to me how people are like just cheering it on because they're getting to see like, you know, Black Little Mermaid. Like people are fighting that fight and they're not like, oh my God, you guys don't see what's happening? Wait until the homophobe takes charge of this whole machine of censorship that you are more than happy to help, you know?
You just reminded me right now how I was in this exhibition for the 50th anniversary of and it was just like, child labor. Oh,
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. No, it's like that.
Part of our culture.
Wow.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
but there's child labor.
It's crazy. It's
you know,
fast fashion. We don't even think of it.
corporations, like, you know, like, you know, yeah, but, you know.
Yeah.
That's what it is to live in.
It's definitely confusing, I would say.
In the midst of neoliberalism, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's manic. It's fucking. It's manic depressive, dude. It's bipolar, and definitely.
well, it can and it can't be. Like, it shouldn't be, because we come with a legacy. So, for example, you just reminded me, this might be a good thing and a way to think about before we end, is there's a Tongva story that's over, like...
Are you Tongva?
No.
Okay.
But before time immemorial, like, I mean, it's a 1,000-year-old story about a coyote story. And the coyote's looking around the village and he says, hey, what's up? Like, what's happening to everybody? Everybody is starving. And the grandma goes, oh, coyote, it's the giant. He's starving everybody. Oh, where's the giant? I'm going to kill him. Oh, coyote, come on.
Yeah.
No, seriously, give me a bat. I'm going to kill him. Oh, give me a machine gun. I'll kill him. And she's like, oh, coyote. He goes, what? He goes, you're already in him. And I just thought to myself, like,
Yeah.
these people already, like, you can put neoliberalism, you can put whatever the giant is.
Yeah.
It's like, chill out, dude. We're all in it already. We're all having to survive in it. Instead of just judging each other and stuff, like, figure out your relationship with it and learn from other people's mistakes and successes and like move on, you know, like and appreciate the journey for what it is. And we're so blessed to just like have what we do have, you know, and do it for the 7 generations or more to come, and in respect to the 7 generations that came before us, you know, because we are very lucky to have that connection to our culture and our spirit. And believe me, like, the predator, the giant, wants that because it's the most valuable thing that truly is power, you know, and it's coming for it, and you get to give it away or not, or sell it, you know, as a person.
No, I mean, it is definitely an inescapable reality, that neoliberal reality. But I do agree with you that there is a way, maybe that it's always going to corrupt you to some degree, but there's a way to not enable it at the expense of others, which is what you were alluding to, or what I felt like you were alluding to. I don't want to make accusations about what you were saying about Shepard Fairey, but I do think that, like, I think it's also valid to just be like, that just went south, you know, specifically.
Right, this is living Boyle Heights, baby.
Neoliberalism at work. But yeah, like I think it is interesting to sort of, I guess what we've been doing is processing our relationship to the neoliberal establishment by assessing the work of one particular artist, which I think is a healthy thing to do, you know, like to just be like, yeah, this guy did these are the pitfalls. Like you said, learn from other people's mistakes. Yeah. In terms of like, it's not, you're not hating on something and someone just because you're criticizing or thinking about it critically.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using him as an example because he's a popular figure, but
I don't feel like you hate him. I don't feel.
I don't even know him.
Yeah,
I mean, because the degree of separation is so much, then I could like really talk about him in that way. But if I knew him, then I would be more like, all right, that's a nice guy. He does donate money to a lot of different
I'm sure
causes
he means
and
well.
all that.
Yeah.
I know the road to hell is paved with good intentions and all that. I know that
he's also not Latino. I mean, there's
a lot of white kids are put into this position, like this country does, like to be the face of rock and roll or the face of graffiti. When in reality, it was a lot of people of color that were the ones who like are the foundation of it. But whatever. It's just that, like, don't think you're radical and get stuck at that. That's more of what I'm trying to do, is like push you out of spinning your wheels in the mud, thinking you're
trying to stay radical
you're radical because you have a Obey t-shirt, that you bought at Mervin's for.
No, that was never radical. The Obey t-shirt was never radical. But cool, man. Well, I really appreciate the conversation. It's definitely been very interesting. I like that I didn't even have to lead the way because I knew that like Latino talks are always like this. Like this is the shit that when white people aren't around, and especially if it's someone that speaks Spanish, this is what we talk about. It comes up, right? I think we talked about this shit the first night we met.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just what's interesting. It's like it's like two white people talking about who their favorite Democrat is. Or no, it's more like listening to two Democrats talk about who their least favorite Republican is, because we're talking about the problems with being an American that understands like that has a toe outside of it, right? Like I don't have.
Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about. Okay, this is the whole thing. The gaze is so often from the east to the west.
Yeah,
when we're coming at it from the south to the north and the north to the east, making our way out in that gaze.
We're part of the global south. I think, right? I mean, I don't think it's the southern hemisphere. The global south doesn't start at the southern hemisphere. Maybe we're not. Anyway, but it is definitely a crazy thing. And
real quick, the thing that's interesting about that, just bringing it back to arts and as thinkers and everything, and living in the study that we do, it's almost that I was thinking of it as like, where you have a generator and an alternator, and the complexity of like what the alternator compared to the generator, what it's doing twice the amount of relaying information or power or, energy, because we're responding and we know like the roots of, Latinidad or, indigenismo, and being indigenous to this land and having the family and colonialism and all that. And then also dealing with the U.S. and then being part of Black culture, being such a part of our culture as well, that they've provided us so much.
But just the question of it, do you have papeles? Like is that is not, aquí in California, people get very hung up on like on holding their arm up to yours, which they don't realize is actually kind of racism, being like, I'm whiter than you, right? And it's an interesting thing because like you've talked about the 7 generations before the Senate. I don't know my generations. I know my grandparents. That's it. Because of this embargo. This embargo has kept me from understanding my history. I've had to look it up online. I know the Proenza is a Portuguese name that comes from a town in Portugal. And most Proenzas are Cuban. And that's one of the things that no one ever really talks about, because there is a there is a unifying cultural thing where it's like, I'm not just Cuban. I am part of a colonialized, of a colonial system that injected us with language and religion and stole our wealth that way. And it's interesting in that sense, because that is sort of the underlying understanding that Latinos have. Like, it's like, I don't know, whatever. I was going to say different cultures, they see each other and they can recognize it. And I think that happens between Latin American cultures. I don't think, like, I mean, yeah, we have a rep for being like Cubans hate Puerto Ricans and stuff. That's more of a generational thing. I think like when I meet a Puerto Rican, I'm like, okay, I want to hear your perspective of the US. Because that is a very interesting perspective that you're not going to get from someone from Michigan, right? They're not going to understand America as an entity the same way that someone from Puerto Rico who is a territory and gets fucked versus somebody that is, you know, and there's so many countries that are either now socialist or were recently socialist, but have been, you know, like Brazil was right wing after a fucking scandalous thing and now they're left wing again. I can't even keep up with who has like a left wing government. It's and every time they flip right wing, or a lot of times like in Honduras, it's a coup, you know, and it's the Clintons, it's the Democrats doing it. It's a very interesting thing. People do not realize how right wing and fascist they are in this country. And that's what I like about talking to Latinos. Even the ones that are conservative are more left in terms of foreign policy a lot of times. They may not be for immigration the same way. Like that is something that's ugly with Latin American people where they're like, they want to not let other people in after they're in, you know? They pull up the rope. But in terms of like understanding foreign policy, I think a lot of people get it.
You know, you just what you bring up is very interesting in the fact that like wherever your ancestors came from, it was always people that were willing to move, right? Jump on a boat, travel across the world to a place they've never seen and follow a dream for something better because they were over what was happening in the place they were from. And that lust for life is what connects us all so much, because if not, you would be...
La música, la comida, todo eso. Yeah, dude. That's like, I mean, there's nothing better than going to someone's like, to someone of another Latin American culture's cookout, you know? You're just chilling there and you're like, what the fuck is this? Oh, you call it that? I call it this. You know, like churrasco. I people, it's flank steak, but people out here don't fuck with churrasco. In Miami, that's like the hugest thing, you know? And then we have masitas de puerco. You guys have carnitas. And then, al pastor, bro, that shit does not exist in Cuban culture. But look, right there, pork. Pork is a unifying thing. Why? Because pigs are easy to keep on boats.
Yeah.
You know, so very easy to domesticate animal and stuff. So there's so many things about Latin American culture. I'll probably have you back on just because I like talking about this shit, and I'm usually interviewing a lot of white people. I mean, not like not in a pejorative sense, but like people that I can't talk to them about this, and I just usually end up telling them that the empire is bad without without fully convincing them. But man, it's been a pleasure. Anything that I can plug for you? I don't know when it's going to come out. It might come out after, but we'll leave the plug in so people know that you're hustling.
Yeah, no, just, I mean, you could check out my work on Instagram. I have a website, Mr. Raul Baltazar.
At Mr. Raul Baltazar on Instagram, and your website?
Raul Baltazar.
Raul Baltazar.
And yeah, I'm always, you know, I don't know. Different exhibitions are coming up. We'll see what happens. And
are you represented by anyone in particular, or are you just hopping around?
No, I've never been represented by anyone.
That's pretty good that you're making it work, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna start teaching at Otis, a mural painting class. You know, one class. And I teach with Ola, Heart of Los Angeles, to youth in MacArthur Park area. We talked a little bit about that. There's a lot of really cool programs out here in LA that don't exist in other places to like give arts access to people. It's good to teach, and you know, slowly, like I said, I'm going to be getting into some good exhibitions to be announced later. And yeah, we'll see what happens with the art market. Yeah, you know. Yeah, maybe that'll be the follow-up one. It'll be like, cool, yeah, man. Did he make it or not? Did he become Shepard Fairey? Did he become a capitalist pig? All right, now a carnita or not? Now he makes carnitas. All right, man. It's been a pleasure. And thank you guys for checking out the show. We'll be back next week with another artist and another interesting topic that may or may not be related to art. It always kind of is, though. I mean, that's the trick, right? Thanks, guys.